What's happening, everybody? Avery Braxton here for ABC 24, here with a very special guest. I have Daryl Johnston, the head of football operations for the United Football League, who are obviously with the Memphis Showboats this year. First of all, thanks for joining us.
No, my pleasure, my pleasure. We were in town, so figured we'd stop by and say hello.
And you were in town for a very important event, the FedEx Cares event. Can you just kind of tell me what that was all about and what brought you to Memphis this go-around?
Well, just trying to find ways to engage in the community. So this was one of the big events that FedEx Cares had scheduled during the course of the year, and I had never been to an event. So just the opportunity to get there and see how they do it, and it's amazing to watch a company that has the logistical capacity that FedEx does and involve it in a charitable endeavor. So to listen to not only here in the Memphis area in Shelby County, but because of what their reach is, where they get to around the world with the ability to bring in things for food insecurity, hygiene kits. It was amazing. And then the efficiency of the staff that's there. It was amazing. And my favorite part is we put together 51,000 meals today, and it's from scratch.
Right.
It's in a bag, and it's sorghum and rice and vegetables and seasonings, and it all goes down, and it's all created by the employees of FedEx. So it was very impressive.
It's probably one of those things you don't even really think about, you and I, in the worlds that we live in right now, but you think about what people need and being able to fill that need. What was that like for you, being a part of all that?
Just being able to provide the fundamentals, the things that many of us take for granted here in the United States, and to know that we still have people here in our country and in this community that are stressed and trying to figure out a way to just cover the basic necessities of day to day. And then to be able to take that around the world. It was great. And I think sometimes we look at corporate America in a way, and when you see the way that FedEx engages and what they do from a charitable endeavor with FedEx Cares, completely different perspective on corporate America.
Yeah, you certainly don't have to tell any Memphians about FedEx here. They do so much in Shelby County and Tennessee, and like you said, throughout the world. We can get into a little bit of football talk now. You are with the United Football League this year, was the USFL last year, joined up with the XFL run by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. What was that conversation like to bring those two companies together?
I think the powers at B decided, why should we stay here and fight each other toe to toe? We understand the value of spring football and the opportunity that it creates for these players, not only to get back to the NFL, but to hopefully get back and stay for a couple of years and really kind of change their trajectory in life from a financial standpoint. So it made so many questions that we had answers to. You're checking so many boxes, so let's go ahead and do this. And then it's just going through that process. And the hardest part of that entire endeavor was going from 8 teams in each league, 16 teams total, back down to 8. Right. And knowing that we were going to lose so many good people in the USFL and the XFL families, from not just the players, but support staff and coaches and marketing and ticket sales, right, and just across the board, across the gamut of the football family. And it really put a lot of pressure on us from a football perspective. If we're going to do this, let's make sure we do it right.
Yeah.
And when we're done, the product is at a level that we haven't seen in spring football for a long time. So that was our charge. And I think we've done a good job to this point. Obviously, we can get better. And that's the one thing we talk about. When we had week 1, there were some bumps. There were some areas that, you get pressure tested for the first time, and you see where you've got some gaps. And the expectation was, listen, we don't expect, and we shouldn't be at our best week 1, but we do expect, and we should be at our best week 10 as we go into the playoffs. So we've seen gradual progression every week, and that's the great thing about this is you're bringing in 2 different leagues together and trying to combine it and make it into one. You've got some different cultural components and some different ways of doing things, and the one thing that we've talked about with this merger is best practices.
Sure.
Check your ego at the door. Whatever works best is how we're going to do things.
Certainly, and you talk about it almost like a marriage, right? When you're getting married, you're bringing in a new partner. There's so many things that have to layer on top of each other. Obviously, a big personality like The Rock. What has it been like to work with him? I don't know if it's day-to-day or daily or weekly or whatever it is, but what has it been like to kind of be a part of his orbit and see how he does things?
Well, not just Dwayne Johnson, but Danny Garcia as well. Both of them with the platforms that they have, and to be able to amplify and promote what we're doing here in the UFL is great. Their engagement when they are with us, is something to be seen. You know, I talked to Russ Brandon, and in week one in Arlington, you know, Deion Sanders is there and Troy Aikman is there, and there's a buzz and there's a vibe that's around them. But when Dwayne Johnson walks into the stadium, it's a completely different thing. So, I mean, when you talk about guys like Deion Sanders and Troy Aikman, and then here comes Dwayne Johnson, and it blows that away. You know, that speaks volumes when you've got somebody like that that's in your football family and has the ability to help you promote. And Danny Garcia is on Zoom calls on a consistent basis and always is digging in and has great suggestions and great ideas. You know, the marketing perspective that she brings in, I'm really excited of what we're going to do in season 2, just implementing some of the ideas that we've touched on a very surface level component where we can get into some depth and discuss it in the off season.
Yeah, I think you bring up an excellent point about Miss Garcia. I remember when I was in Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium not too long ago when they brought up the marketing video for her and just talking about the presence that she brings and all the ideas that she has. And even though she's, you know, long time associated with The Rock and with Dwayne Johnson, she has her own orbit and she does not live in his shadow at all, especially when it comes to this league. So that's really cool. You talked about having to scale back some of the teams, going from 16 back to 8. Yeah. The Showboats in Memphis was an organization you decided you wanted to keep. Why was that? What was it about Memphis that you felt like was going to fit this league?
I think the big thing was going from year 1 to year 2 and targeting Memphis as one of the iconic teams in the USFL and just having the partnership of Fred Smith and FedEx and the potential that could grow there. It was definitely a marketplace that we felt was advantageous. And there'll be a lot of people in the sporting world that will say, move forward with caution. It's always been challenging in Memphis. And one of the things that we do in the UFL is we don't back away from a challenge. When we think we have the right partners, when we've built consensus locally, we feel it's an opportunity for us to move forward. We've had great partners at Liberty Stadium. And for us, to be able to go back and touch on a franchise that had Reggie White as part of it, back in the first iteration of the USFL, it's such an iconic franchise. The logo is fantastic. The fan base, and that's the thing that we're finding out. And whether it's Memphis or whether it's Birmingham or whether it's St. Louis and DC, the markets that we picked have this core group of fans that are passionate about their team. Now, how can we take that and start to grow and build off of that? And that's going to be our number one focus here in Memphis, because the core group that we have is awesome. I mean, they're fantastic. The Yacht Club and everything that they've brought and put their own spin here as fans of the Memphis Showboats has been very impressive. And now how do we continue to grow that? How do we bring in more people, get them into the stadium and let them experience it, and then see if they'll come back and stay with us for the whole season? Right,
and you had to make some changes even from year 1 to year 2. You let Todd Haley go. You bring in John DeFilippo, who had a lot of success with the New Orleans Breakers the previous year. What was it about DeFilippo that you felt like this is a guy we want to keep in our organization as we try to grow this league?
I think he helps our players a ton. He assembled a phenomenal staff. I think we look at John DeFilippo as a head coach with an offensive background, and we stay on that side. But to bring in Carnell Lake and Paul Pasqualoni, Antoine, the defensive line coach, they're all great teachers. That's what we need here. We need guys that can help our players reach the level that they expected. The one thing I love most about what we've experienced so far in Memphis with John DeFilippo is players coming to us and saying, I haven't been taught the game of football at this level, at this detail, since I was in high school. I didn't have that in college. I didn't have that at other places that I've stopped. So John is very meticulous in his preparation. I think that is probably one of the really big reasons. But for me, it's not just your love of the game, but your ability to create that love and expose your players to it and help them grow and find that passion for the game. John in 2017 was one of the biggest names in the NFL. I mean, the year the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, he's the quarterback's coach. I mean, he was a hot name around the NFL. And for whatever reason, times it doesn't click. The opportunity's not there. All of a sudden, all these other people pass you by. So this has been a great opportunity for John, and he embraces it. And that was one of the things that was important for us was to make sure that John stayed inside of our football family. And then when he went out and did the things that he did on the defensive side of the ball and really kind of balanced the way he approaches offense with the way they approach defense. And him and Cornell Lake have gotten along really, really well together. And it's been a great mix. Then we brought in Dennis Polian as the general manager, and Dennis and Skip or Flip had worked together for several years and have known each other for about 20 years. So it was like that perfect mesh of everything coming together, and hopefully Memphis benefits from that.
Absolutely, and he's definitely brought a fire to the Memphis
Yeah,
Showboats organization.
fantastic when he
Every
walks
time
out.
you talk to him, he's got a smile on his face. He's very engaged with you. I think he's going to be a good coach for us for a few years to come. You actually were in town a couple of weeks ago for the first home game of the year. I know you were around last year as well. What have you thought about the Memphis Showboats experience in Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium? Do you like it? Do you have some things that you would like to work on? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, our biggest challenge, here in year one, and really for us, year two in the USFL, is always attendance. It was hard here because we also had the Houston Gamblers paired with the Memphis Showboats, and as a team that's not in market, it was always going to be hard. But it's all about how you start off the season, and Memphis got off to a slow start last year, and so we had that curiosity in week one, and then the record's not there, and they go away, and then all of a sudden they get on a 5-game win streak, and here it comes right back. And that was the important thing to me, is to see the ebb and flow of the season, and as we started to gain momentum here with the franchise, that a lot of the attendance came back. But that's always going to be our biggest challenge. We've got outliers like St. Louis, who's gone over 40,000 for us already. You've got DC that sold out 2 games last year, smaller venue, not as many seats, but when you have 2 sellouts, that's pretty impressive. So we've got kind of our outliers there, and I think the potential for a Memphis, for a Birmingham, is there for them to start joining that club. I mean, it's a fair price ticket. It's spring football. You hear people that are like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the NFL to get started. Well, if you can't wait for the NFL to get started, come watch the UFL during the course of the spring. So I think the biggest thing for us is always going to be, that revenue component, and one of the bigger things is attendance to our games. And that's one of the ones we got to continue to work on. Like I said before, there is a core group here in Memphis, like we have in every single one of our markets. And how do we start to grow that? How do we get that passion to spread throughout the fan base here in Memphis and drive the interest, but then capture that as soon as they come to their first game? So
some of that interest can maybe come from some of these rule changes that you guys have had. I think Memphis has already kind of gotten bit by one. Yeah. You think you got a big lead, and then the way the scoring works and the onside kick rules and all of that. Can you just kind of explain why this league and those rules were necessary to generate the interest that you're looking for?
One of the big things that we always talk about is pace of play, and it's something the NFL has really been trying to improve. Once you get into that 3:08, 3:12 time frame for a game, it's hard. So we always want to be definitely below the 3 hour, and as close to 2:50, 2:55 as we possibly can. So a lot of those rule changes come around to make sure our pace of play stays up. I think one of the plays that gets the most conversation about this year has been the kickoff.
Adopted by the NFL this year.
Exactly. The NFL adopts the old XFL style of kickoff, and yet here's the UFL that stays with the USFL style of kickoff. And we've gone through that a million times. I wanted to see. I'm a kickoff fan. And I also know the player safety component because I was the center on the kickoff return team. So that meant I had R5 and L5, which are 2 of the bigger guys usually on the coverage team. So I know what that collision is like. It is violent, you just gotta find ways on how to minimize that impact. It's hard, but I get the whole safety element because of the position that I played. But I do love the traditional kickoff style. And when I grew up as a kid, those were some of the favorite players in the NFL. I mean, Billy White Shoes Johnson and all these guys that were wide receivers, but really their impact was on special teams. Devin Hester just went into the NFL Football Hall of Fame mainly because of his ability as a kick returner. So I've always wanted to be able to try and keep that element. And the more traditional style of no movement at the kick and then you're covering as opposed to the staging area, I felt that was a big leap. And let's do a progressional movement towards maybe the vision that everybody saw. So we got together as a group, and we really felt that when we looked at the medical data, ours was on par with the XFL. We didn't think we were putting our players at risk. And we always say, if we're wrong, and as we watch this play, if the data shows that we need to look at it from a different perspective, we will. But that has generated a lot of the conversation. And then here we are in the season already as we go into week 4, and we've had 2 teams, to your point, get bit by that 4th and 12 onside kick play. And one of them is Memphis. I mean, 11 points in the final minute of a game. And we had the same thing happen in Arlington last week with DC. I mean, Arlington controls the entire game and loses at the end to DC. Memphis is in complete control. I mean, the entire game, 59 of the 60 minutes, they are in control of that game. But that late touchdown and the PAT conversions where you can go for 2 or 3, and then the 4th and 12 play, it keeps the excitement of the game there right to the bitter end. So whether it's our rules and some of the things we're doing there, I think some of the technology that we bring in when you're talking about information that's on the sideline, the true line that we've implemented, to show the fans how close that ball is when it's spotted. There's the access that we give, with the conversations and Flip. I mean, that's TV gold when you've got John DiFilippo and that passion on the sideline. When he's trying to win a football game, it's awesome. So I think the transparency that we have and the access that we grant to our fans is something that they really like. I think some of our rules and our technology is some things that the NFL's got their eye on. So it's been great, to try and build something where you're doing things a little bit differently. But those things that you're doing differently may become something that's permanent in the NFL years down the road.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how does that give you any level of validation when you see a league like the NFL that is a behemoth of the game, obviously take something that you've built and say, hey, we can adopt some of these things and make our league better as well?
It's not something that we built everything around.
Sure.
We want to be considered a standalone professional sports league that plays football in the spring and not the fall. But obviously, when you talk about the NFL and what they've built through the history of their league, it's amazing where they are today, and to be able to work with them on different elements of the game of football, especially when we're talking about player health and safety, to me is great. Rules that maybe we're a lot more agile than the NFL is, and maybe it's things that are in conversation, but they would like to see it implemented more consistently in a game setting, and we can do that for them. Yeah. So I think that there's opportunities for us to have a very synergistic relationship. And I think that both of us can help grow the game of professional football in a way, working together, that wouldn't have been possible prior to the UFL coming together in the spring.
Well, we look forward to seeing many more Memphis Showboats games here throughout springs to come, and I appreciate you coming along. We had Daryl Johnston, head of football operations for the United Football League, and as many of you Dallas Cowboys fans may better remember him as Moose, a former Dallas Cowboy fullback. Thank you, Mr. Johnston, for joining us,
You're welcome.
and we look forward to seeing you here for years to come as well.
Absolutely.